Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, where we blend casual conversations with insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets. Whether you're a seasoned techie or just curious about what's changing the world, we cover it all here.
Right, and today's no different. We've got a deep dive lined up that's going to touch on everything from cleaner skies with Airbus and Apple's AI ambitions to the electric car showdown brewing between BYD and Tesla. And we'll wrap things up with how AI could actually play a role in keeping kids safer online.
So much to unpack, and it's all based on the articles and notes he sent over.
Yeah, a real mix of stuff that I think gives us a cool snapshot of what's hot in tech right now and where things might be headed.
Okay, so let's jump right in. First up, Airbus. Their CEO has been talking about some pretty big sustainability goals. Net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
Yeah.
That's a huge target. When you were looking at their plan, what really stood out to you?
Well, the big focus is on what they're calling sustainable aviation fuel, SF, for short.
SSF. Okay, so what is that exactly?
It's basically a greener version of the jet fuel we're using now.
So kind of a drop-in replacement that's easier to adopt.
Yeah, that's the idea. They're looking at other things, too, like hydrogen and some futuristic stuff. But SF is where they see the biggest short-term impact.
Makes sense. Start with what we can do now and then build from there. But it's not just a matter of swapping out the fuel right. There must be challenges.
You got it. The CEO was pretty clear about the need for everyone to be on the same page. He stressed the importance of global unity and a level playing field when it comes to SAF. Think about it. Aviation is a global industry, so if SAF is super expensive in one country and cheap in another, it creates a real mess.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And speaking of different approaches, we're seeing that play out globally right now. You've got Europe pushing hard with those Fit for 55 mandates.
Right, those are basically a whole set of rules aimed at slashing emissions by 2030, and a big part of that is requiring airlines to use a certain amount of SAF.
So they're setting hard targets. Then you've got different approaches elsewhere. And the Airbus CEO even mentioned the previous U.S. administration's different stance on green tech. What happens when everyone's got their own playbook?
It makes reaching that global net zero goal a lot harder. If some regions are lagging behind, it doesn't matter if others are charging ahead. And then you've got China to think about. They're moving incredibly fast on clean energy, like solar, wind, and nuclear. There's this idea that they could actually jump ahead in SAF production, much like they did with electric vehicles.
It's like everyone's in a race, but they're not even running on the same track.
Exactly, and that's going to make things interesting.
Now let's shift gears a bit. Within Europe, there's this conversation about balancing sustainability with security. What's the connection there?
It's kind of a chicken and egg thing. The argument is that you need a stable and secure environment to have the economic prosperity to invest in something as massive as a climate transition. You can't be worrying about immediate threats and also planning for 2050.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to have your house in order before you start redecorating.
Right. And that's why we're seeing Europe boosting their spending on space and defense at the same time as these green initiatives.
It's all connected. Now, this idea of an Airbus of space came up. That sounds pretty ambitious. What's that all about?
It is ambitious. The goal is to basically create a European powerhouse in satellite manufacturing. Think of the success Airbus had in aviation. They want to replicate that in space.
So it's about collaboration and scale.
Right. They need to work together and pool resources to compete with the big players globally, like Starlink. It's a similar challenge they're facing in defense, actually. European defense is pretty fragmented, which makes it tough to do these really big, ambitious projects.
Sounds like there's a theme emerging here.
Definitely. More collaboration, more unity, that seems to be the key.
And, of course, we can't forget about tariffs. Those always seem to be looming in the background. What would those mean for Airbus and the whole aerospace industry?
Well, they tried that before a few years back, and it didn't really work out for anyone. It was a lose-lose for both the U.S. and Europe.
So hopefully they learned their lesson.
Yeah, fingers crossed. There was a truce recently, and the hope is that it holds. But what's important to understand is that Airbus is a global company. They've even got a manufacturing plant in Alabama.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah, so the U.S. and European aviation industries are deeply intertwined. Tariffs would hurt everyone.
Okay, let's move on from the skies and talk about what we might be wearing on our wrists or in our ears. Your sources on Apple hint at some big AI moves in wearables. What's the scoop?
The big thing is that they're looking at putting cameras into things like AirPods and the Apple Watch.
Hold on, cameras in AirPods. Why would they do that?
The idea is to give these devices a way to actually see the world around them to enhance the AI capabilities. Imagine your Apple Watch being able to not just track your steps, but actually understand where you are and what you're doing.
So my AirPods would become like tiny little spies.
Yeah, kind of, but it's all about making them more useful and helpful.
I guess so. Still a bit creepy, though.
I know what you mean, but one application they're considering for the Apple Watch is visual intelligence. Imagine pointing your watch at something like a plant you don't recognize and having it instantly identify it.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, they could use AI similar to what's in your phone's image recognition, powered by something like ChatGPT or Google Search. It'd be like having a walking, talking encyclopedia on your wrist.
I could see myself using that all the time. So is this just about making gadgets cooler, or is Apple playing a bigger game here?
It's definitely about making their products more attractive and encouraging upgrades, but it's also about Apple strengthening its position in the AI world. More sensors like cameras mean more data and more potential for new features and services.
Now, Siri hasn't exactly been the star pupil in the AI class lately. How do those sources see Siri's future and Apple's overall AI strategy?
The general feeling is that we probably won't see any truly mind-blowing AI features from Apple until at least 2027.
2027? That seems so far away. Why the wait?
There's been a lot of shuffling around in Apple's AI division. Siri got moved under the software engineering team, and the guy who led the Vision Pro development is now involved too. It seems like they might be totally rethinking how they approach AI across all of their products.
Makes you wonder if the Vision Pro experience will influence the future of Siri somehow.
Maybe we'll see a more spatially aware Siri. Who knows?
Okay, from wearables and AI assistants, let's jump into the world of electric cars. BYD's been making headlines.
Yeah, they're shaking things up. In the first part of 2024, BYD actually made more money than Tesla, even though they sold fewer vehicles.
How is that even possible? Fewer cars, more revenue. It doesn't add up.
It's all about strategy. BYD isn't just focused on battery electric vehicles like Tesla. They've got a huge lineup of plug-in hybrid vehicles, too.
So they're covering more bases.
Exactly. And it's a smart move because globally, we're seeing demand for fully electric vehicles cool off a bit. But at the same time, there's been a huge surge in interest for plug-in hybrids.
So the hybrid isn't dead after all.
Nope, not by a long shot. And BYD's also nailing it on price. They're offering both plug-in hybrids and EVs at really competitive prices. That's something Tesla's still working towards.
I see. Accessibility is key. Now, there's also this talk about extended range electric vehicles. EREVs. What are those?
Imagine an electric car with a little backup generator. They have a gas engine, but it only charges the battery. It never powers the wheels directly.
So it's a hybrid, but not in the traditional sense.
Exactly. And companies like Dodge are jumping on the EREV bandwagon, which suggests this technology is gaining some serious traction.
It's like the Chevy Volt is making a comeback.
Yeah, kind of. Full circle moment. Now, on the money side of things, Chinese EV companies like BYD are raising a ton of capital.
Yeah, I saw that. Billions of dollars.
It's happening mostly in Hong Kong through these things called secondary offerings, basically companies selling more shares after they've already gone public. And it's happening at a time when the IPO market in New York has slowed down.
So why are they doing this in Hong Kong? Is it just a hotter market or something else?
It's partly the market, but it's also a reflection of the Chinese government's massive push for EV development. They're pouring resources into this sector. It's kind of like Tesla's early days when they were constantly raising money to fund their growth. And it's not just the car companies. Battery giants like CATL are doing secondary offerings too.
Everyone wants a piece of the EV pie.
Right. It's the place to be right now.
Okay, last but certainly not least, let's talk about something that's really important but honestly kind of scary. Online child safety. Some of the stats you included about the state of youth mental health are alarming.
Yeah, they are. The numbers on low self-esteem, eating disorders, anxiety, depression, even suicidal thoughts among young people. It's a real crisis, and it's undeniable that social media and the online world are playing a big role in all of this.
It's something I think about all the time as a parent. It's scary. So tell me about these new AI tools that Aura's developing. What are they all about?
Aura is known for identity theft protection, but now they're launching these AI-powered tools designed to protect young people's mental well-being online.
Okay, so how are they going to do that?
Well, the whole thing was inspired by the founder's personal experience. And, those fundamental questions every parent has. Where are my kids online? What are they doing? Who are they talking to?
It's like the modern version of who you're hanging out with, but amplified by 1,000.
Right. And one of Aura's investors has a background in media companies that focus on safe content for kids. He was very clear about how critical it is to have solutions like this. The online world is a wild west for kids.
So how do they walk that tightrope between monitoring and respecting kids' privacy? That's got to be tough.
It is. Aura's been very clear that they're not about spying. The goal is to give parents insights and tools to guide their kids. They use the analogy of learning to drive. You wouldn't just hand over the keys without teaching your kid how to drive.
That's a great analogy. It's about coaching and guidance, not just watching their every move.
Exactly. But it's a constant arms race. Safety tools need to constantly adapt because the online world is constantly changing.
I can only imagine. And what about the social media companies themselves? Couldn't they build in some of these safety features?
They could, but social media companies have their own agendas. Or is taking an independent approach. They want to provide a layer of safety regardless of which platforms kids use.
So a sort of universal safety net.
Yeah, that's the idea. To give parents some peace of mind in this crazy digital world.
Well, this has been a really thought-provoking deep dive. Some pretty heavy stuff, but also some really exciting developments. Thanks for breaking it all down.
You know what's really fascinating is how all these different areas we talked about, from aviation to AI to EVs and online safety, they're all connected in a way. It's all about innovation competition and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely. It's all part of the same story. Thanks for tuning in to Byte-Sized Tech. If you enjoyed this deep dive, let us know what you think in the comments. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration into the world of technology. We've covered a lot today, but it all begs the question, as technology keeps advancing, what are the really big questions we should be asking? Not just about what we can do, but what we should do.
Right. What kind of future do we want to create?
Exactly. Keep those questions coming, and we'll see you next time.